Hey there, this is Taylor Elwood, your mad scientist and magical experimenter, and I'm in the pop culture magic group on Facebook. We have one of the memes we have is Random Question Wednesday, and so I thought today I would answer the random questions that we got, and I would do it live, and I'll notify the people via message that their thing was answered, unless of course they choose to tune in. But I wanted to do that. And I want to note for those of you who are watching live that there is a way for you to actually get notified when I go live. So I'll put that link up in a moment. And also, well, yeah, that's it for the moment. All right, so the first question I was asked was, the person said, "I'm still studying this, so forgive me for what may be a silly question. But when practicing pop culture magic, are you simply using pop culture figures in standard spell working or experimenting with forms of magic presented in works of pop culture, or both?" Great question. And the answer is, the short flippant answer is both. But let's really go into it. When you do pop culture magic, you can do pop culture magic where you are working with a specific character or characters from pop culture. For example, if I want to do a working with with the character of Harry Potter and Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley, I can do that. So that's one example of that. Or if I want to work with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or the characters from Voltron, or anything like that. Any pop culture that really speaks to you, you can work with those characters and treat them as spiritual entities. They are spiritual entities for all intents and purposes. And so you can work with them in that way. On the other hand, a lot of the pop culture magic that I do is actually based off of adapting ideas from pop culture and turning them into a magical working, or seeing that there are certain things that pop culture got right and how they put an interesting twist on it magically. And so I end up doing some pop culture magic that way as well. In fact, and again, we're going to use Harry Potter as an example of that. You see the wand workings with Harry Potter. There's some really good ideas, like the Patronus spell is a great idea that can be used magically. In the case of let's see here, I want to use something else. Well, like Dragon Ball Z, for example, they do. Dragon Ball Z was what helped me start to understand energy work and chi. Let me put it that way. And then eventually I read books on Taoism and all that other stuff. But I first got exposed to those ideas through Dragon Ball Z, and I first started doing internal energy work as a result of things that I saw on that show. So now let's see, is there another example I can think of off the top of my head when it comes to pop culture magic? Well, there are a couple of other ideas. Actually, or a couple of other examples. One example would be the Deathgate saga. In the Deathgate saga, it's a fantasy series, and it's the way they explain space-time magic is actually one of the foundations of the way I approach space-time magic. So when I read that book, they had appendices where the authors explained how the magic worked. They are not, as far as I can tell, actual practitioners of magic. But they did this really good job of explaining the way that it should all come together. And so I liked it, and I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. So what I ended up doing was building out a lot of space-time magic on the basis of that. So pop culture magic really is, as I said, it's working with characters as pop culture deities, but it's also working with it's also taking magical ideas or concepts from pop culture and turning them into viable pop culture workings. Now, there's another question we have, and in that question, I'm just going to look at it real quick. Do you find that people who practice pop culture magic believe in the multiverse and are approaching these beings as being from their respective universes, or are most people using pop culture as a stand-in for unapproachable deities or concepts? Again, interesting question. My response to that one is going to be, first of all, I take the multiversal approach. My feeling on it is that there are multiple universes, and in some of these universes, that pop culture universe is actually real. And the reason why we have access to that is because the person who's created the material basically channeled it. They tapped into something and as a result, they were able to channel it and write it or show it or whatever else and share it. And so what we're tapping into really is an alternate universe through the pop culture medium. On the other hand, I can accept that for some people, a pop culture spirit is really just a stand-in for something else that's unapproachable, or it's basically an archetype. Kind of like, well, I mean, just like archetype theory in general, where the archetypes represent specific forces, and so pop culture is just pop culture spirits are just another way to connect with specific basic primal forces that we wouldn't be able to connect with otherwise. They mediate those forces for us. Either theory works for me, and I mean, at the end of the day, that's what really matters. So hey, if you're watching this video, you're going to see a link here also show up where you can pre-order my new book, Pop Culture Magic Systems. It's coming out in August, and if you're watching this on YouTube, then it's actually in the show description. So check that out, and thanks for watching, and have a great day. Now let me just go and get ready here and